So, we're about to dive into a pretty wild paradox. We're looking at an industry that is absolutely booming, but its entire educational foundation is basically set to crumble. It's the fascinating, broken world of modern beauty school.
And when I say booming, I mean it. The beauty school market is just on a rocket ship. It's projected to hit nearly $15 billion by 2035. That's a staggering amount of money, growth, and you'd think opportunity.
But, and this is a huge but, get this, a new federal law is about to pull the financial plug on almost every single one of them. 98%. So how can an industry be soaring and sinking at the exact same time? Well, that's what we're going to break down.
Okay, so to really get the boom part of this story, we gotta zoom out for a second. We are right in the middle of a massive new trade school gold rush. And you know who's leading the charge? Gen Z.
This chart just says it all, doesn't it? While your traditional four-year colleges are seeing, pretty sluggish growth, trade school enrollment is surging, up over 6.5% every single year. It's a fundamental shift in how the next generation is thinking about work. And this isn't just some small trend, 40%. That's a massive chunk of an entire generation actively choosing skilled trades. They're looking for stable, AI-proof careers. The irony is they're walking right into an industry that's about to be turned completely upside down. And here is that upside down part. It comes in the form of a powerful, brand new federal law nicknamed the OBBBA. And believe me, it is dropping what you could call a regulatory iron curtain on this whole industry. So the heart of this new law is something called the earnings premium test. And the idea is actually super simple. For a school to keep getting federal funding, its graduates have to prove they earn more money than a typical high school graduate in that same state. If they don't, the school fails. Simple as that. And look, this isn't some far-off hypothetical. The clock is already ticking. By 2028, schools that keep failing this test, they're going to start losing access to federal student aid, which, for most of them, is their absolute lifeblood. Okay, so that's the high-level policy stuff. But what does this actually mean for a student on the ground? Well, honestly, for too many, it's a story of debt, some pretty grimy conditions, and just a whole lot of disappointment. Get ready for this number, because it's pretty stunning. The very schools that can get federal aid, the ones OBBBA is targeting, they charge students, on average, 78% more than schools that don't get that aid. So the aid itself is actually jacking up the price. And this example from Dallas just makes it painfully obvious. Look at this, $16,000 for a program at a school with federal aid versus less than $5,000 for the exact same program at a school just down the road. And the license you get at the end? Pretty much identical. And paying all that extra cash doesn't even mean you're getting a better education. I mean, read this quote from a student. They were taught to just flip the towel instead of getting a clean one for the next client. It's horrifying. It points to this really dangerous neglect of basic fundamental safety. So you take on all that debt. You get questionable training. And it all leads to what people are calling the 35K plateau. After everything, many graduates find themselves stuck, earning about what an entry-level retail worker makes. It's almost impossible to get ahead. And if you look at the actual government data, you can see why. A general cosmetologist's median wage is sitting right there on that plateau. But look over at the specialists. Estheticians, for example. They're earning more, and their field is projected to grow twice as fast. Specialization is key. All right, so the old system is clearly breaking down. It's messy, but out of all that crisis, a really fascinating evolution is starting to happen. So let's look at how the smart schools and students are actually surviving what's being called the Great Shakeout. And it really all comes back to that one word, specialization. The schools that are going to make it are the ones pivoting hard. They're teaching the high-demand, high-margin skills that old-school programs ignore, things like brow lamination or medical aesthetics. And maybe most importantly, they're teaching the actual business skills you need to build a career. And of course, technology is playing a massive part in this. Over half of schools are now bringing in digital learning tools, even AI, trying to modernize their classrooms and, frankly, trying to fill the huge gaps left by just teaching from outdated textbooks. This whole shift has given rise to a really cool new idea, the public library model. These are schools that are all about total transparency and public safety. They treat education like it's an open resource for everyone, not just a transaction you make to get a piece of paper. So if you're thinking about beauty school today, the new game plan is pretty clear.
First, look for programs that specialize. Second, seriously investigate those lower-cost schools that don't rely on federal aid. And third, demand transparency. Ask for proof of costs and what their graduates are actually earning.
And that brings us to the final, critical question here. As this huge, multi-billion-dollar industry is forced to tear itself down and rebuild, what's it going to be built on? Is the future really going to be about genuine student success? Or is it just going to be the same old problems, just wrapped up in some shiny new tech?